Welcome to Saturation News. Today I have some breaking news. OSHA vaccine mandate rules are announced. This was announced earlier today, this morning. This is a big change right now with the Biden administration. They have came out and they are going to be requiring businesses with over 100 employees to require vaccinations or require all employees to do weekly testing to prove that they do not have COVID-19. So the White House has released new guidelines on their website, which you can view. And those guidelines are a little bit interesting. Businesses are going to have to start paying employees for time off that it takes to get vaccinated. Even if they get sick from the vaccine, the businesses are required to give them sick days. No matter if they've went over their sick days, they're required to give sick days. The new OSHA rule is requiring that all unvaccinated employees are masked. All covered employers must ensure that unvaccinated employees wear masks while in the workplace. And that applies for inside and outside as well. And a little bit of information about when the date is coming, which is January 4th. They posted a thing about that and how to get information, which is on OSHA's website. White House guidelines are even weirder when you actually start looking at the stuff that's on OSHA's website. And there's just a couple things we just want to go over so everybody understands this. So what you're seeing right now is the emergency temporary standard, summary COVID-19 vaccination and testing ETS from OSHA. This is the statement that they made for businesses, the big legal paper that you're seeing a little snippet of above on your screen and some other little snippets from that article. So this is OSHA's statement. Unvaccinated workers face grave danger. This is part of it. You can see it in that little side thing. What they are saying is that unvaccinated workers face grave danger. Unvaccinated workers are much likely more to contract and transmit COVID-19 in the workplace than vaccinated workers. OSHA has determined that many employees in the U.S. who are not fully vaccinated against COVID-19 face grave danger from exposure to COVID-19 in the workplace. This finding of grave danger is based on the severe health consequences associated with exposure to the virus, along with evidence demonstrating the transmissibility of the virus in the workplace and the prevalence of infections in employee populations. The evidence is the finding of a grave danger as in selection III.A. of emergency temporary standard preamble. The emergency temporary standard is limited to employers with 100 or more employees. In light of unique operational safety and health dangers presented by COVID-19 and against the backdrop of the uncertain economic environment of a pandemic, OSHA proceeded in a stepwise fashion in addressing the emergency. This rule covers OSHA about employers requiring 100 and up. But it says, but is less confident that small employers can do so without undue disruption. So they believe that small employers are going to have issues enrolling these OSHA regulations if they made them for people under 100 employees. OSHA is stating that in these statements, though it is good to note that the more people you have, the more you can transfer to COVID. The smaller, it also happens in small groups. So why the 100 number was used by OSHA? They're just saying right here that they think it's easier for businesses with 100 to in place the OSHA rules. So is OSHA's emergency temporary standard legal? This is something that is very interesting. So as we've went over in this episode, we just talked about how this is completely relied on OSHA themselves saying because of a lot of people getting sick from the workplace. But we don't have any evidence of people actually getting sick in the workplace or contracting COVID and it being the main source of this getting sick. In fact, it could be multiple things: restaurants, family members. There has to be more data to that than what's being said, but they are right. People are probably getting it from being in the office. So that's what it's running on. But this is actually a very interesting topic. So people keep discussing if this is legal. And it comes down to a couple of things. It's in the gray zone. And here's why this OSHA wool, ETS, whatever you want to call it, emergency temporary standard, whatever you want to call it. Is it legal? Well, here's the thing here. Yes and no. It is legal and it's not legal at the exact same time. Yeah, it is OSHA's job to impose safety standards, but this is something that if OSHA was going to do, should have been done literally at the beginning of COVID. There should have been OSHA things coming out saying that, we need businesses to do this and that. We didn't see OSHA really do that many things. OSHA did come out and say that you should wear masks, but they won't really doing that much. They didn't have really any standards. Like, there's nothing, there is no ETS from that time period, which is kind of odd. Another thing that's really weird about OSHA is technically they don't have the right to mandate vaccinations because they're a federal part of the federal government. But because it is a virus, it's a little bit different. So technically, yes, they do, and technically, yes, they don't. Hence, the gray zone. So this is something that can go actually both ways for Republicans and Democrats. So if you're a Democrat and let's say you want this, you want OSHA to do it, you're so happy they're doing it, well, yeah, they can just as much go and say, yes, it's both legal as much as they can say it's not legal. Because people could come out and say, well, OSHA mandates vaccines, yes, for certain health workers. They have the ability to do that, okay? They're health workers, they work with people that's sick. That makes sense. It's legal because they're with people being sick. They're trying to protect the workers along with the patients. At the same time, though, where does the branches differ from OSHA? If they can impose regular, approved, long-term, been out for a while vaccines that we have data on, then couldn't they also do it with a vaccine running on an emergency use status, even though it's approved? Most of them have emergency use statuses. They haven't had that much data on them. So yes, they can go through. They can mandate this. It's OSHA does have a duty to do it. But at the exact same time, OSHA just has just as much ability as they can mandate it as they can't mandate it. OSHA can come out and they can say, businesses need ladders a certain size. Okay, that's their job. Businesses are going to do that. The thing here, though, is it boils down to a law that it boils down to if OSHA is going to be considered federal, and federal does not have control over it. There was a Supreme Court case called Jacobson v. Massachusetts. And this Supreme Court case, basically what it went through is it held that it was the rights of the state's police power to protect the public health and safety of its citizens, and that local boards of health should determine when mandatory vaccinations were needed, thus making the requirement neither responsible nor arbitrarily imposed. And basically what that means is that these vaccines, if they consider OSHA federal, Jacobson v. Massachusetts, if they want to go that route and say it goes with Jacobson v. Massachusetts, then it's not legal. But if they want to go and they want to not consider OSHA a federal branch and they want to, use, it's just nurses and medical staff are forced to take things through OSHA, then they can say, well, yes, it is legal. At the same time, you can pull out the argument that Jacobson v. Massachusetts was done at a time without modern medicine, and that it doesn't apply to today. And that can also swing and come in and fight with it. And that's another possibility that could come in the courts. They could argue that Jacobson, Massachusetts was so long ago, it's the states that should make it up. And not even the states, no one should be forcing you to get it. The big thing here is, no matter what side of the spectrum this falls on, it's going to have an impact on something. That's just what it's going to do. And let's go into a scenario. Let's say that it's declared unconstitutional for OSHA to be mandating this. Let's put that in here. It's also going to take a lot of other things that OSHA does, depending on how it falls. Because it could fall saying, well, OSHA can mandate things for nurses that are approved, have been outlawed. It's in the gray zone. It's in an area where it rides the thin lines of being legal and not legal, and the court system and the Supreme Court are the only people that can answer these questions that we have. That's what it boils down to. That's our opinion here at Saturation. We think it's just as legal as it's just as unlegal at the same time. It is a gray zone, and that's where it falls in, with legal challenges. Governors are fighting back across the country with attorney generals. As you can see, Kristi Noem came out and basically said, as you can see here on a tweet, she said, this morning the Biden administration released their guidance through OSHA that affects over 100 million Americans. I am announcing today that we are joining a lawsuit against the Biden administration's unconstitutional vaccine mandates. Joe Biden, see you in court. South Dakota's Attorney General Jason R. Ravensburg also released a statement as well, saying that they are joining other states in suing the Biden administration. And yes, there's not just Kristi. We got the governor of South Carolina, Governor Henry McMaster, who's also came out and said he just can't believe what's going on. And then the Republican National Committee actually released a statement on the vaccine mandate, which reads, today Republican National Committee RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel released the following statement on the Biden administration forced vaccine mandate. And this is what they said. Joe Biden failed to shut down the virus as he promised. He couldn't do his job. So now he wants you to lose yours. The mandate is yet another attack on frontline workers, first responders, small businesses, and the rights of the American people. Additionally, by taking months to draft this order and shifting the deadline to after the holidays, for political gain, Biden is completely undermining any emergency jurisdiction for his unlawful overreach. While I am pro-vaccine, the Biden administration does not have the authority to force hardworking Americans to choose between being vaccinated and providing for their families. That's why the RNC is suing the Biden administration over his unlawful vaccine mandate and will remain every legal option to fight this authoritarian overreach. Here's the thing. As we said, this falls in the gray zone. So just as much as this can swing for the Republicans, it can swing for the Democrats. There are so many ways this could be done through the legal system. It's just going to be a shit show over the next couple of weeks. Possibly the next couple of months, that's normally how long it takes months to have things go through the courts. But one thing's for sure, this is not going to help get people back to work. It's not. A majority of Americans will not go back until people are vaccinated, and then the other 50% isn't going back until they drop the mandates. Here's the thing. We're not your doctor. We have no medical degree. We can't speak on vaccine efficiency. We don't know anything about vaccine efficiency. We just know what the CDC says. But what we can tell you right now is that this vaccine mandate by OSHA is going to be a disaster in the courts. It's going to go through. It's going to flip-flop. I mean, the amount of ways that they could put this towards Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Progressives, and may say, well, why am I naming a bunch of random parties? My point with naming all of these is this: it's going to sit in the court system for a long time, and it's going to be a lot of parties arguing. Republican, Democrat, people, parties. Everyone's going to be arguing over this whole thing. It's probably going to be a key player on the 2022 election. And if you're curious, yes, there is a lot of other states that have came in and are suing Biden over his vaccine mandate. There is a lot of states suing him. Now, you might be wondering, how many states exactly? 19 states are suing Biden. 18 states filed 3 separate lawsuits Friday to stop President Joe Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for federal contractors, arguing that the requirement violates federal law. And those attorneys, attorney generals from Alaska, Arkansas, Iowa, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. They all signed on that one lawsuit. And this is from October 30th. Now, if you want to know what's happening right now, just think of what happened with that. That many states, 19 states, is how many that sued Biden. Imagine how many are going to be suing over this. This is not over. This is not going to be over for quite a long time. Keep watching. Stay tuned to Saturation News, because we'll be keeping you all updated on everything going on. For more information and the latest news regarding this topic, visit saturationnews.com for more information. If you're interested in getting our news straight to your emails daily, visit saturationnews.com/subscribe. All our plans are free. Get subscribed, get notifications, get true news that tells you everything in just facts.